Hey, this is Tim with Studio 4 Media, and for those of you that don't know, this is our website, studio4media.com. It's all spelled out, so studio, F-O-U-R, media.com. And if you scroll down here, you can see a little bit more what we do, what we're about. We've got our free tutorials, we've got a blog, and then you can see here if you go to the plans and pricings and scroll down, you have a demo tab. And this just shows you some of the tutorials we have available for our members. And then, of course, we add new content every single month, new models every month. And then you can get a preview of these tutorials that you'll be getting, like this one here. And they're all really high-quality tutorials. Shows you how to do some awesome effects, blockbuster effects, like this one here, this Tron tutorial where a dude disintegrates. You can get access to all this plus a lot more by signing up. Really incredibly cheap price too in comparison to a lot of other places that are out there to offer this level of training. So we thank you a lot for supporting us and for following us and watching our tutorials. So let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be taking a look at camera mapping or camera projection inside of Maya. Now this is an effect that I think gets really undervalued. Not that many people know about it. Not that many people use it in their portfolio or in their short films they're making or whatever it may be. But it's one of those things that can just really make an image pop, or literally make a sequence pop. And so basically what camera mapping is you take an image and you put a whole bunch of really low resolution geometry, like cubes and spheres and everything like that, and then you project that same image back on that geometry, and it gives it the illusion that it's actually 3D. It's a 3D image, and you can rotate the camera around it, and but all it is just the camera is projecting that image. So it's a very useful effect. It's used in every single movie that comes out nowadays, whether it be low budget, high budget film. Every movie uses this effect to one degree or another because it saves so much time. For example, if let's just say that a director says that he wants to have a shot of the Washington Monument, like a helicopter shot, fly over the Washington Monument for his movie. So one option would be that you could hire a camera crew, rent a helicopter, get everybody up, get permits, pay the state whatever you need to do in order to fly a helicopter that close to an area. It'd be a big hassle. It would cost a lot of money, and I don't even know if you'd be able to do it. And the second alternative, though, would be to just take a simple image like this from the internet or from some royalty-free website, and you create some really low resolution geometry and camera map it, and then you can have access to make it appear as if you're in a helicopter and you're zooming over the Washington Monument. It'd be a really cheap way to do it. It's really fast. You can make changes really quick, and the results are really amazing. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll show you kind of what I'm talking about here. This might be kind of confusing without seeing it in action. Let's go ahead and get started. So we'll go ahead and create a new camera. And we're going to want to pull this camera back in Z space. And we're also going to want to select it with this tool right here in your General tab. This is the Show Manipulator tool. You can click on that and you'll see we can see this here. And what we want to do is we want to snap this to our grid. So we'll hit X on our keyboard, and that's going to get us snap into the grid. Snap it right there to the middle of the grid. What this does is this allows our camera to just rotate from that position. So you can see if I go up like this, it's just going to stay fixed on that position instead of going everywhere else. So, alright, got that set up. Let's go ahead and look through that camera, and we'll rename this Projection Cam. Alright. And let's go ahead and set up an image plane. One thing, though, that you don't want to do, which I just did, is, let's go get this back to the grid. You don't want to move it with your middle mouse button. So you can go zoom out and you can rotate, but if you move the middle mouse button, it's going to mess up the orientation of that. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Alright, let's go ahead and set up our image plane. So we'll go to View, Image Plane, Import Image. And let's go find our image here. Now this image will be available with this tutorial on the website. So studio4media.com, you can get this image. And you can see here we go. So a real simple image with simple geometry. And let's go ahead and make some changes. One thing you need to know about camera mapping is it's very important how you set up your scene, how you set up the camera and the render attributes of your scene. So let's go back to our perspective mode, and I think I accidentally undid naming our camera. I want to name that and make sure that's projection cam. There we go. Alright, so it's important how we set up our camera. So with our camera selected, we want to make sure in our attribute editor that our focal length is set to 52. Now I'm getting that number from this image. I know that this image was shot with a 52mm camera or lens attached to the camera. And there's some programs online that if you just have a stock image, most of the time it'll tell you, or you can find out through a couple of different third-party programs. So, but I know this was shot with a 52mm lens, so I want to change this focal length to 52. The other thing I want to do is in my render attributes here, render settings, let's change the size of this to the right resolution. So it's going to be 1079 by 719. That's the resolution of the image. That's very important as well. Make sure we have that set up. Alright, now if we go ahead and just view through our projection cam and we render this out, obviously it looks really good because it's just an image. And the goal here is to be able to rotate around this image, because if we were to rotate right now, say if I'm in perspective mode and rotate around it like this, it becomes obvious that it's an image. So what we want to do is just create some basic geometry. So we'll go back to our projection cam here, and now that we have our camera set up, let's go ahead and just create a cube. But before I do that, I want to kind of position my camera in a correct spot. So you can see here that if you look at my grid, the lines are going this way, and if I look at where the crate is sitting on the floor, you can see it doesn't line up with the grid, and that's what I want to have happen. Is I want to have it lined up with the grid. So I'm going to rotate my camera, zoom in and out until I get it to the right spot. It looks like it's rotated up on this grid here. So right about like that, you can see that this line here is now lined up pretty good with that crate, and the floor line here looks like it's pretty well lined up to where the floor would be, or where the wall and the floor intersect right there. And now this crate's not lined up, but that's okay. We can fix that later. As long as we have something lined up, that looks pretty good. All right, let's go ahead and create a geometry. Now that we have our camera lined up now, we want to go ahead and just lock it into place. And we can move it a little bit later if we need to, but for now we want to lock it, just because once we have it set perfectly, we don't want it to move. So I will right-click on all the, I'll just click and drag down to select all these, and then right-click and say lock selected. Now I can't move my camera. So let's go ahead and create some geometry. So we'll go to polygons, and we'll just make a quick cube here, and let's take a look in our projection cam. I'm going to turn on wireframe mode, and I'm just going to move this cube over to where I think it should be. And you can see here now I don't want to move it down, because if I move it down it goes below the grid, and then it's not going to be on the floor. We're acting like the grid is our floor, because that's the way we have it lined up. So we don't want to do that. In fact, what we want to do is, let's go ahead and go to side mode. We want it to be directly on the floor. So let's see here, perspective. We want it to be right on the floor, snap to the grid. So I think it's this one right here. What we can do is if we hit insert, we're going to click and drag our manipulator down to the bottom, and then we're going to go and do the same thing, hit insert again to finish that, hit X, and then make sure that we're snapped onto that grid right there. And then going back to perspective, you'll see, okay, so now we're snapped onto the grid, and we don't want to move it up or down because that would basically mean it was going through our floor. So back to our projection cam here. So we have it lined up vertically somewhat, but we need to get it lined up on the floor here. So what we can do is we can move it forward. So in translate Z, we can move it forward, and then of course in translate X, we can move it back over to the right position. So now we're getting somewhere close to the right position, and we can scale it down. And this is just a matter of trying to get it lined up correctly. One thing we can do too, if I go to our perspective mode, click on our camera, if I go to our image plane here, and I say fit to resolution gate, that's going to help with that. And that's fine. You can also increase. Let me see if that did anything. That helps a little bit. So now it just made it so it shrinks it so we can see the entire image, and it's not going off to the side like it was earlier. So this helps. Okay, so we got that lined up, and that's looking pretty good. You can see it's a little bit short, so we're going to want to increase the scale in Z. If you select Z, you can see that right now the way our camera is set up, I can't actually click the Z axis and scale it. So what I'm doing is I'm just selecting scale Z and then middle mouse button and dragging until I get it to where I want it to be. Same thing with translate Z. So about like that. It looks pretty good. Just trying to get this lined up with the camera. The closer you get it lined up, the better it's going to look. So, and I think our scale just a little bit more. That looks pretty good. Something like that. So we can see I have our box there. And it needs to be moved a little bit in Z, as we can see. And probably the scale just a little bit. And then we'll move it back. Okay, let's take a look there. Not bad. Alright, so we have this one lined up. And it's not perfect, but it's definitely looking pretty good. So basically what you're going to want to do is create this really low resolution geometry for everything you see in the scene. So we have another crate here, a box down here, and a smaller box in front of it, maybe something on top, maybe something for this back here too. You're going to want to create geometry for all that. And I'll do one more with you here, and then I'll finish it off separate. That way we don't take up too much time. So I'm going to select this box and hit Control D to duplicate it. And we'll drag it over to here, and you can see this is going to be a lot different because it's a different size and shape and everything. So of course we can scale it. And one thing we want to do is probably push it back in Z. Translate Z. And also you can rotate this. So I can rotate this to get it lined up and then move it. So yeah, you can definitely rotate it, and of course scale it up a little bit. And now that it's rotated, we can see our Z. Translate Z. Alright. So just doing whatever it takes to just kind of get this in position and make it the same shape as this crate here. Something like this here. Obviously we can mess around with the rotation a little bit more to get this top one more in line, but you get the general idea. You can spend as much time as setting it up as you want. I would recommend that you do that because then it would the camera projection would be a lot better. So make sure you take your time when you're setting these up, and yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and finish setting up the rest of these boxes, and I'll see you in just a second. Okay, so I went ahead and got the rest of those boxes made. You can see here I got a box on top of here, one for in front of here, a couple on the side over here, and then one for in front of this crate right here. Also, I went ahead and turned on, if you go to View, Camera Settings, I turned on just the resolution gate and the gate mask, so you can see exactly what it is that I'm going to be getting whenever I render it out along here. Let's go ahead and turn off our grid because we don't need that anymore. Because if I show you here, if I go to perspective mode, I went ahead and also created a plane for the back wall and then a plane for the ground. And they just intersect right where the grid intersects whenever you have that cross on the grid. And lined it up to where whenever you look in your perspective or projection cam, wherever the image looks like it's lining up. So right about there. You can see here. Right about there. Lines up. Alright. Now I also have a render camera, and all this render camera is a camera with a simple animation. Just kind of rotates around these boxes, because remember, we don't want to move our projection camera. I want to keep that the same, because that's the information that Maya is using in order to project this image onto our geometry. So let's go ahead and go back to our perspective view. Now that we have all this set up, you really want to set this up correctly, and you can take your time on that. But the reason why you want to set it up correctly is because this part goes really fast. You can go ahead and just select all your objects, right-click, hit Assign Favorite Material, and we're going to go ahead and assign a surface shader. So now that we have our foundation set up correctly, this part's going to go really quick. So under our surface shader settings in the attribute editor, we can go ahead and click Out Color. We want to right click on File and say Create as Projection. Okay, and then we're going to go down to our image under the projection attributes, and we're going to select an image. I'm just going to select that same junkyard image we have. Okay, it's going to be projecting it onto it. Let's go ahead and go back to our projection node here, change the projection type from planar to perspective, and then we want to go ahead and link it to our projection camera. And then we're going to fit that camera resolution. So we want to hit Match Camera Resolution. So now that we have that set up, if I go ahead and go back to my projection cam, hit 6, you can see here, so it's kind of pixelated, doesn't look very good. If we go to Renderer and change from our default viewport to viewport 2.0, I'll go ahead and get that sharpened up there. And this looks just like the same image we just had, so what's the big deal? And you're not going to be able to tell a difference until we go to our render camera and we back up and we just hit play. And you can see now we're rotating through. I'm going to go ahead and hide our cameras too so we don't see it. We're rotating through here, and this looks really good. It looks like we're actually rotating around these boxes and everything. And it looking great. The cool part about this is that it's a really simple technique, and it gives you some amazing results, because as you can see, let's say go ahead and render this out. I mean, okay, no, here's another thing. So you can see how this is blurry right here and along the sides here. We'll go ahead and fix that. If we go to our camera settings here, actually, let's go ahead and go to our surface shader settings. In our out color attribute, go down to effects, change this filter from 1 to a value of 0.1, and that should help sharpen up that blurriness there. So we'll go ahead and render this back out. And yeah, there you go. So not so blurry, but as you can see, looks very good. Obviously needs a little bit of color correction. You can do inside After Effects or whatever, but that animation looks great. The cool part is you can always add some other things to go along with it. Say add like a ship that is coming in for a landing, and then of course if I textured the ship and made it look good, it would just look pretty cool, because the background looks really realistic. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoy this tutorial and you can use this technique in a lot of cool ways. Feel free to post some examples of things you guys make on our website, on our blog. Also, I went ahead and have a few more images that I'll make available on the blog for you guys to use, besides just this image. And you got some ancient ruins here, got this old classroom that would be really cool to do, some Stonehenge images, the subway station. All these are just pulled off of Google royalty-free images, so you guys can experiment with these. You can see how easy it would be to make this same technique, use them, these images. So feel free to use those. And yeah. Also, I want to show you this video. This is a guy that uses technique. Now he used Cinema 4D, but the technique is the exact same. It's still camera mapping, and of course he brought it into Premiere for the color grading and everything. So you can see here if I play some of his stuff, all these were just taken from 2D images, and just had some really subtle camera movements to them to make it look like it was 3D. So and you can see here he's added some particle effects on the image just to make it look like it's actually outdoors. That's something you could do with any of the images that you use this technique with. So yeah, check out this video. I'll put a link to it in our blog post, and that way you guys can see just some of the things this guy's made. Some pretty incredible things you can do with this technique, and it makes it look really cool. So thanks so much for watching, you guys. I really appreciate this, and we will see you next time.